What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Blazers Uprise Live. Today we're going to talk about some coaching changes, maybe a couple of draft rumors, and it should be a pretty chill and short stream. I know there probably won't be a lot of people watching live tonight because, there's a lot going on tonight. There's the debate tonight. But I know a lot of you guys watch back after, so if you're watching this back after the fact, thank you for tuning in. If you're watching this live, how's your night been? Let me know in chat. We're going to analyze these coaching decisions because there's 3 coaching decisions that were announced since the last time we've streamed. Ty Lue is now officially the head coach of the Los Angeles Clippers. We kind of knew that was going to be the case on Monday, but now it's 100% official. Nate Bjorken, is that how you say his last name?
I don't know.
He's a Nick Nurse disciple. So Nick Nurse... Yeah. Is starting to have a coaching tree now at this point. Was the assistant coach of the Raptors. Now he's the head coach of the Indiana Pacers. And you have Stan Van Gundy becoming the head coach of the New Orleans Pelicans, which was a bit of a surprise. That was announced today. Didn't really see that happening. But you also have a couple coaching vacancies still open. Or is it just one? Houston's is still open, right?
Yeah. Houston's
is open. I don't recall any other coaching vacancies. I might be missing one. Let me know in chat if I'm missing one of those. But Houston's been tied to Jeff Van Gundy, so maybe you'll have both Van Gundy brothers back coaching in the NBA. You got one of them right now with Stan in New Orleans. So it's interesting. The coaching carousel has been interesting this offseason. I wish Portland was a part of it, but I'm not really going to go in on that.
Who did OKC get? Are they still open?
Are they still open? I think they are still open.
Because they fired Billy Donovan, but are mutually parted ways.
I don't recall them getting anybody. Okay, so it's OKC and Houston. Good call there. What's up, CBACC? It's going good tonight, man. So, rank those 3 coaching hires, Eric? Because I'm curious. I feel like we probably have the same rankings, but rank the Bjorken, whatever, Ty Lue, and Stan Van Gundy hirings.
This one's hard for me because I don't know anything about Bjorken or whatever you say his name. Mm-hmm. But I'm actually just going to give him the nod just because I'm guessing that Indiana did their homework, and the fact that he learned from Nick Nurse, I think, gives him an edge over a couple of retread coaches.
Yeah, exactly. That's the type of hire I would, that's the type of guy I would like to see Portland have as a coach. I read a couple quotes from him just talking about how they're going to try and be versatile defensively and utilize more ball movement, more creativity offensively. So kind of, it seems like he's going to try and coach that team the same way Nick Nurse coaches the Raptors. And if that's the case, then I think he has to be number one, right? You go from a pretty limited system and they're kind of stagnant there in Indiana, and now they're going to try and get a lot more creative. I think that's a good thing for them.
Yeah, I will say, because initially when D'Antoni left Houston, there was rumors that he was headed straight to Indiana. So I like, going with a unproven commodity versus just going with another guy where you already know what he's going to be like as a coach. And I'd rather have the upside of a coach where no one knows than a guy who is going to be pretty average as a coach.
Who's your second?
I'd probably say Stan. He has had a couple of chances to coach. The Detroit thing, I think the problem was that he was in charge of personnel too, and I don't think that is a good idea to have the coach also be in charge of personnel. Just because, he can have a say in it, but to be the main guy in charge of it, I think is too much responsibility for both coaching an NBA team and trying to run a front office. So I'd say he's a pretty good. I like him as an analyst, so it's kind of sad to see him go from there. But it's just a weird hiring though, because you think they have a young team. They've had Alvin Gentry as their coach for a while, so he kind of seems like a similar style in Gentry. So I don't know if that's a good idea to keep going along those routes instead of like what we just talked about with Indiana, just trying something different after being stagnant for a while.
Got you. What are you playing with?
It's Cora.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I was wondering. Yeah, I would have. Hello, Cora. I would also have Stan Van Gundy at number 2. And it's not even necessarily anything that he does well, but I don't know. He's not one of those retreads that I'm really sour on.
The third one, though, Tyronn Lewis.
I wanted to talk about Stan Van Gundy.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He had that stint in Orlando where Dwight Howard kind of screwed that over, but he made a finals with that Orlando team, but that's a different NBA. And then he ends up in Detroit, and that roster was just kind of a mess. So it'll be interesting. I feel like they needed to hire somebody with more creativity offensively, because like you got Zion, who I think would be best suited being used in creative ways off the ball as much as he is on the ball, right? And you have good playmakers with Lonzo Ball and with Drew Holiday as a solid playmaker. You got Brandon Ingram as a scorer. I feel like the roster needs somebody who's really creative offensively, because you have a lot of decent pieces, but the way they mesh is kind of weird. The outside shooting is a little bit suspect there. I just don't know if Stan Van Gundy is going to bring that level of creativity. And then the third, I have Ty Lue, just like you do. Shervin's posted the stat. Ty Lue is 1-18 without LeBron. Okay? That's terrible. Obviously, he had a terrible roster, but what has Ty Lue ever done, like, without LeBron? You know what I mean? Like, any coach can win a title with LeBron. You know what I mean? It was almost like LeBron coached that team as much as Ty Lue. Now, Ty Lue was the right coach for that team, I feel like, because he's willing to, like, step aside and let LeBron, kind of run things when LeBron, wanted to, and I feel like he's just more of a player's coach, and he doesn't really provide anything that's too creative or unique, or I feel like nothing sets Ty Lue apart from any other coaching candidate for me. Like, what does Ty Lue do well? I can't name anything.
The only thing I'll say to that is it's kind of hard to know, because he did, like, all his coaching decisions were based on having LeBron, and everyone thought LeBron was making the decisions anyway. So, we don't really know how he is as a coach, I guess. So
1-18 without him.
Yeah, but that team was so bad.
Still, 1-18, that's horrible, man.
Because he started the next year out as their coach, right, and got fired a few games into the season or something. It's the same thing I'll say about if people want, like, Stotts fired and Nate Tibbetts to take over. I don't like when an organization is too stagnant to just promote an assistant under the head coach. Like, to me, it's like, why let Doc Rivers go if you're just going to hire his lead assistant or whatever? Like, it's not enough of a change in my mind to bring about the changes you're hoping to see by changing the coach. Just bringing up having the same guy in the locker room that's been there the whole time, I don't think is a big enough change to me.
There is a positive to that, though, when it's just like, they've only had 1 year with that roster. The positive is Ty Lue has a better feel for what went wrong than in a new guy coming in that wasn't there last year. Ty Lue was with that team last year, so that is the one positive to it.
But he's also partly responsible for the reason that.
Yeah, exactly. So there's upsides and downsides. In Portland's situation, it's just like Nate Tibbetts has been there for years. You know what I mean? And Nate Tibbetts came up under him, where Ty Lue was a head coach before Doc Rivers. So that's the difference there. But yeah, I would have liked to see them go with somebody just more creative. You know what I mean? Like, the Clippers kind of had the same problem at times where they just relied too much on isolation. And
Not sure. I think we're back.
Hopefully. So, yeah, I'm just going to restart that point. I feel like players that played in offenses. Hopefully, we're done lagging.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very stuttery. Sorry for the lag. Good old stream lag. Wouldn't be a Blazers Uprise stream without a little bit of lag. But
open your door.
That's what I was saying. Yeah. Come on. It goes straight from no connection to excellent connection. Okay. So yeah, let me just restart that point. Let me just restart this point because I want to make a point, and it kind of ties into Portland and it ties into some other teams. I feel like players that were in offenses that ran more isolation than average ended up playing worse in the postseason than they did in the regular season, right? The Milwaukee Bucks moved the ball well during the regular season, but in the postseason, I felt they got way too stagnant, way too isolation heavy, and just tried to rely on Giannis, and Giannis didn't play well. The Clippers had the same issue. Paul George didn't play well, and Kawhi didn't play as well in the playoffs as he did during the regular season, I feel like, and that was due to them kind of getting stagnant and bogged down in the playoffs. So the thing is I would have liked to see the Clippers get a coach that is creative and good in terms of utilizing players off the ball, and just kind of not just giving it to one guy and standing back while one guy just kind of takes over a game, right? You use Kawhi more off the ball, use Paul George more off the ball. It's like movers, cutters, off of screens, that type of thing. They did some of it last year under Doc Rivers, but not enough, especially in the playoffs. And I feel like that's a big part of why they had such huge offensive lulls, especially in the fourth quarter at Game 7. They had a huge offensive lull, and it was due in part to that. They couldn't generate good shots because they were just too stagnant, isolation heavy. So the thing is like Ty Lue has experience as a head coach. Just LeBron runs everything. You know what I mean? And he was there last season with Doc Rivers. I feel like that could still be a problem. They needed a coach that could draw a better offensive scheme and not just, okay, give the ball to PG, give the ball to Kawhi, give the ball to Lou Williams, and they'll go make stuff happen. Because I feel like that's what cost them in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, so tying this to the Blazers, you see games where, CJ can get hot and win a Game 7 for us against Denver. You've obviously seen Dame go off for 50 against OKC and win a series for us there. But then you get to a team that is a lot better defensively, and you either are going to make incredibly tough shots or you're going to lose the game. Mm-hmm. And it's not sustainable for an entire playoffs. That's why we don't see a lot of deep runs by teams that rely on that, because you can win series, you can win games, you can make a run every once in a while because you have two guys like Dame and CJ who can score the ball, but it's not going to lead you to a championship because they can't do that and win you 16 out of how many ever 30 games in a playoffs. It's just not sustainable.
Yeah, and the thing is, if a player gets hot, you can isolate him. You can, run some isolation if a player is feeling it, like CJ was in Game 7 against Denver. You know what I mean? I'm not saying, don't do that, absolutely. Right? The problem is when there's nobody that's hot like that, but you still have to rely on it because that is what your offense is predicated upon. That's why I'm not a huge fan of Terry Stotts as an offensive coach, and I think he's overrated in that regard because he just relies on too much isolation and just pick and roll and just guys making stuff happen.
And we've seen if a defense is like, okay, we are going to double, sometimes triple team Damian, and Golden State double teamed him and had a spy at the free throw line, like just waiting for him to get past the double team to double team him again if he got past that. And so you cannot just keep running ISO with Damian Lillard then in those situations when they're sending 2 to 3 guys at him to stop him. That's not going to win you a series. And it could win you a quarter or like a game or whatever, like I said, but you have to find a way to creatively get him the ball, get him good shots without running your normal ISO step. And that's why we harp so much on not being predictable both offensively and defensively and running different stuff throughout the year, because you can get away with that all regular season because teams aren't as focused on defense on one person like they would be in a playoff series. So it's fine in the regular season. That's why people always bring up how good Terry Stotts' offenses are, but they never bring up how good they are in the playoffs. They always bring up regular season.
And think about this. Which two players excelled the most in the playoffs compared to what they did in the regular season? I would say that was Jimmy Butler and Jamal Murray.
Hmm.
Both those offenses move the ball and
Yeah.
move the ball well in the postseason. Jamal Murray would get hot just because he's playing within a system. He's playing with it's easy when you have a center that passes the way Jokic does, but Jamal Murray got built a rhythm game in, game out by getting good shots, playing within that system. And then once he had a rhythm, then he'd start isolating a little bit and getting into his bag and making things happen off the dribble. But he already had a rhythm, you know what I mean? And if he started struggling, they wouldn't keep just giving Jamal Murray the ball and isolating him, even though he's not playing that well. They would get back to their, basic stuff with Jokic, moving the ball, moving players, and cutting. I feel like the NBA is moving more towards that, right? You see it with Golden State. You see the more Miami made, like LeBron is the exception to that,
Yeah.
because it's just LeBron and he's crazy. But, you saw it with the Raptors too, move the ball well, and they relied on not a decent amount of Kawhi ISO, but they moved the ball when they needed to. When Kawhi was struggling, they easily got into more team-based offensive stuff. I feel like the NBA is moving that direction, which explains why I don't like retread hires at the same time, because I feel like retreads are still kind of stuck like 10 years ago where the NBA was more isolation heavy, I feel like, and we weren't in this wave where teams were having more success moving the ball, pace and space, moving players, moving the ball. Like, the Golden State Warriors kind of changed what works, I feel like. So that's a good, reason why I don't like retread coaches. That's the thing is, people ask me, who do you want to replace Stotts? And a lot of the names that people know of are retread coaches. You know what I mean? A lot of the names that I don't know of would probably be better options than names I know, like a Nate Bjorken. I don't even know if I'm saying his name right. But that guy is more new school, came up under Nick Nurse, hasn't coached in the NBA before. I would rather have that guy, even though I don't know who he is, than a guy like a Mark Jackson or a Stan Van Gundy or a guy like that. You know what I mean? But the problem is, whenever you say that name, the people, when people ask, who would you want to replace Stotts? And you bring up a name they haven't heard of. Oh, who the hell is that guy? Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? It's either that or it's a retread. But I would rather have a guy like a Nick Nurse who nobody knew when he became the head coach of the Raptors. And now, at this point, he might be the best coach in the league. So I'd rather have that than just a retread, due in part because I think newer coaches will tend to kind of go along with the new wave of the NBA, which is moving the ball, moving players, and that type of thing, which is harder to guard in the playoffs, and we saw that this season.
And that's why I also want to run more offense through Nurk, because most of the teams you mentioned, Golden State, Draymond Green can handle the ball and pass very well. Jokic can handle the ball and pass. Raptors last year had Marc Gasol is more like a Nurkic type, where he doesn't really dribble the ball up, but he can make smart passes. And they also had secondary playmakers like a Kyle Lowry, who can also handle the ball and take pressure off. Siakam can handle the ball a little bit too. So just surround them to smart players that pass and move and do all that kind of stuff, and then have a coach that does that. But to me, the Clippers personnel was perfect for doing that. I mean, you shouldn't be able to stop a team with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
Unless you're only doing ISOs and allowing the team to play defense straight up on you and do that. It's just crazy to me that they couldn't figure out a way to get those guys more involved.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not just Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. You got Lou Williams there. And he played terribly, so, I mean, you guess you can't fault the coaching for that because Lou Williams was just all around awful in the playoffs. But you got Montrezl Harrell, you got Marcus Morris, you got Pat Beverly isn't great offensively at all, but, he's serviceable, you know what I mean? JaMychal Green played solidly in the playoffs. Zubac is developing well. It's not like it's a team that's kind of built like the Lakers, where you have two stars and then a bunch of just super mediocre guys. They had decent depth. Everybody talked about how great the Clippers' depth was all season. That's more of a reason why you shouldn't have to just rely on giving PG and Kawhi the ball and getting out of the way and then doing a bunch of isolation stuff and them stagnating too much.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm willing to give Ty Lue a chance, I guess, because it's so hard when you have LeBron, because Doncic is a little bit like this way too. when you have like a bigger guy who can handle the ball like a point guard, it kind of negates some of the double teams and stuff like that. And LeBron is such a good passer that you can kind of make up for that.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see if he was just running that kind of offense because he had LeBron and could get away with it, or if he will switch his offense completely now that he has different personnel. But if he tries to just fit the Clippers personnel into his system he ran with the Cavaliers, it's going to fail miserably, I think.
Yeah, you see Steve Ballmer said he's the best coach in the league.
Frankly, he's the best.
Oh, my goodness. Laker fans, I see talk about how Frank Vogel's the best coach in the league, man. People base coaching too much off of just results, you know, and off of... It's like, man, Frank Vogel, nobody... Before he had LeBron this year, nobody thought he was like some good coach. You know what I mean? He was like the epitome of mediocrity as far as head coaching in the NBA.
Some people thought he was all right on Indiana. He did pretty well there, but they, got the number 1 seed a couple times, I think, and bowed out. Obviously, it was to the Miami Heat, so it's tough when they had LeBron and Bosh and Wade, but
they had the second most talented team in the East during that time.
But then he went to Orlando and didn't do anything, got fired there. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like he hasn't like. You look at a coach like Nick Nurse. Toronto exceeded their talent level this year. You know what I mean? And they won a championship last year. So like, if a coach leads a team to a championship without a guy like LeBron, I know he had Kawhi, but like, he led that team to a championship. Like, I'm gonna give him credit for that. And then the talent level on that team, they weren't a second seed in the East, and I know they lost in the second round, but like they were as good as they were this year because of the style of basketball they play, which is due in part to the coaching. So that's generally what I look for. I think Indiana made a great hire by hiring his assistant. It'll be interesting to see what they do roster-wise, but I think, they shake up the roster, try and get like a true difference maker, like a true star, because they don't really have one. Oladipo at this point is borderline at best. His injuries have kind of taken away from him, and Sabonis, I mean, he was an all-star last year, but he wouldn't have been close to an all-star in the West. So that's the thing, is like they need a true difference maker. But then again, maybe they don't need one if they have a creative enough offensive coach that can get them all functioning like a team offensively, moving the ball, moving players, and maybe they don't have to rely on somebody, kind of like the Raptors were this year.
Trevin says he immediately liked the Pacers hire because he didn't recognize the name. That's kind of what we were saying.
I mean, yeah, I would rather have somebody I have no idea about than a retread. Retreads are like below average to me, But I saw the name. I was like, who? And then I looked it up. Nick Nurse's assistant. Okay, I like it. Like, that's all I needed, bro. That's all I needed. That's all I needed. Because, like, I trust... Too many organizations get caught up with, like, looking for retreads. If an organization hires a name that I don't know, I trust that they put in the work in terms of interviewing the guy, in terms of figuring out how he'd coach the team, and they're making a hire based on coaching philosophies that make sense in this current NBA. That's why they're hiring a new coach instead of a retread. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if Portland fired Terry Stotts, it's not going to happen. But if Portland fires Terry Stotts, man, I would be so disappointed if we just like hired a Mark Jackson or somebody like that. Like if we didn't take a step forward, man. Like. I didn't know this guy was, but if we fired Terry Stotts and we hired that guy, I'd be excited as hell. I'd be so excited. I would be, like, that would be phenomenal in my opinion. You guys know how I feel about Stotts. But that's what I want, I don't want a retread. I don't want a coach that is just hell-bent on just isolating and running pick and roll, and that's it, And that's kind of how Stotts coaches.
I've fallen in love with Jerry Stackhouse. That's my number 1 choice
really?
For the next. Yep. Watching the Neesmith videos and just watching his creative ways to get him open when the whole, like he was their only good player and the defenses knew that was their whole philosophy on offense to get him open threes, and he still was able to do it. Granted, he got hurt and it wasn't a huge sample size, but I just loved watching the creativeness of their offense, and then hearing Neesmith talk about how like he's never seen Stack not watching film or breaking down film or telling him what he did is wrong, and then he had this thing where Neesmith said he broke down every single detail of a defense, and you got graded per game on how you did. So like every closeout you had, every like one-on-one perimeter defense situation, every rotation on the backside, and he would give you a grade for that rotation, that closeout, and then you get an overall grade out of 100. And so, like, if you got a bad score in a game, he would call you into your office and be like, dude, here's all these examples of what you did wrong in the game. Like, you need to fix this. This is not what you do in these situations. And that's the kind of thing I think we need, is to hold people accountable. Like, it doesn't matter if it's Damian Lillard or Nasir Little or whoever the heck it is. Like, everyone needs to be on the same page and know that this is not acceptable, to not fight through a pick or just to give up and let someone, like, screen you without even being screened, and to fall asleep on the backside and stuff like that. And we've talked about this at length on several shows throughout this year, where if you're watching film and you're getting ridiculed or pointed out in those meetings that what you're doing wrong, you're going to be thinking about that during the games. And then it'll become a point where, like, you don't want to fall asleep on the backside because you do not want the coach to call you into his office. So, and then after a while it becomes habit. So you don't even think about it after a few games. You just do it. Like, and then it's a perfectly synced defensive unit because everyone is doing the right thing and is on the same page. But the problem is, if you don't break down film enough or don't do that kind of stuff, you never, like, learn the right habits, or like you don't get forced to do that way.
Yeah, it comes down to 3 words: attention to detail.
Yep.
We don't have enough attention to detail defensively under Terry Stotts. We never have. We've never had enough. And you can see it just by watching the product on the court, if you know what to look for. The problem is a lot of people don't know what to look for, so they don't, criticize Terry. It's all about, oh, well, he just doesn't have defensive personnel. But a lot of the attention to detail things is it's not personnel-based type of stuff. Right. You know what I mean? Like, Carmelo Anthony being in the right spot, like, there's nothing about Carmelo Anthony that means he can't be in the right spot when he's defending 2 passes off the ball. You know, like Carmelo overhelping all season. That's not because it's a physical trait. He was just overhelping all season. If there's more attention to detail on that, I assume Carmelo would have improved and not overhelped quite as much in certain situations. That's the thing. It's like attention to detail on specific defensive things like that are not personnel-based things. So that's why it was so frustrating all season to hear, oh, Terry Stotts just doesn't have the defensive personnel. Like, yeah, we didn't have great defensive personnel, but we were compounding that issue by not giving enough attention to detail on a bunch of different defensive things. So that's why I'd love a coach that gave a lot more attention to detail on defense. I feel like if you had, a coach coaching in the way that you just described how Jerry Stackhouse coaches at Vanderbilt, if we had a coach that coached like that, we wouldn't have been as bad defensively this year, and we would have been more competitive in the playoffs because we would have been better defensively. Like, that's just how it goes. So,
sorry, if we went back and counted your tweets, how many tweets throughout the season did you tweet with the words "box out"?
Probably a lot.
A lot, probably like hundreds.
That's another attention to detail thing.
Yeah, but no, they don't have the personnel to box out because they don't. Hassan Whiteside's never learned how to box out, so you can't teach him now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot, man. Bro, I just found a tweet. I literally just searched a tweet. I said the entire team boxing out is a decision. People are blaming injuries for the Blazers not deciding to box out, which makes 0 sense. Because that's what it was all season long. I literally just searched box out by name. And so, yeah, I mean, that's just a perfect example. So, I mean, I trust you on Jerry Stackhouse. I don't think you're lying on it or anything, you know what I mean? So, like, that sounds like exactly what we need, so I'm on board with that, too. I'd be thrilled with something like that. Creative offense and attention to detail on defense would take this team to the next level over Stotts. You know what I mean? Yep. So, there's 2 things I feel like... There's 2 things that need to happen. Let me reword this a different way. We need to get better by 2 levels All right, this is just kind of like a figurative thing. We need to get better by 2 levels in order to contend. Either it's, okay, our roster gets upgraded a level, and then our coaching gets upgraded a level, or our roster has to get upgraded 2 levels and be so phenomenal that, we can win with Stotts, right? Or we get, a Nick Nurse level coach, and that might be enough with the roster is currently constructed to contend. Or like an Eric Spoelstra, I don't think that Miami Heat team had better personnel than the Blazers do. They just look better because they're better coached and they have attention to detail. They look better defensively. A guy like Duncan Robinson doesn't make dumb mistakes consistently, even though he doesn't have good defensive physical traits or anything. You know what I mean? So, man, like that's all we need. Like, I don't think we're as far away, but we are, because Stotts is going to be the coach for a while. You know what I mean? And he's the perfect coach for a rebuilding team. But the thing is, to contend, you have to have attention to detail on offense and defense, and that's what I feel like we've always lacked.
And we talked about this earlier, but you can get away with the way he coaches during the regular season. It's fine. Like, that's the reason why we were the 3rd seed a couple years in a row, because running heavy ISO and heavy pick and roll, it works during the regular season. But you have to find a way to combat that when teams take it out, instead of just saying, well, they're kind of taking Nurk out of the pick and roll, so what am I supposed to do? The players just need to adjust. That's the crap we heard directly out of Stotts' mouth.
I want to word it this way. It works in the regular season, but doesn't work in the playoffs, because in the playoffs, opposing game plans get more detailed.
Yep.
So they exploit any details that you're not sharp on. They exploit that. It gets a lot more detailed. That's why they talk about a playoff series being a chess match, a game of adjustments. When we don't have attention to detail all season long, we're fine on a game in, game out basis when, opponents aren't really keying in on very finite things to exploit. But when we get into a 7-game series, that's what teams do. They prepare differently, and they key in on finite details, and they exploit those. And because we don't give enough attention to detail, we get exploited in the playoffs, and our offense isn't nearly as good. Our defense falls flat. Like, that's why we've struggled in the playoffs, outside of, one run last year. Other than that, we've struggled, man. We've struggled for years.
And that's why, to your point about the personnel needing to be upgraded if it's going to happen under Stotts. That's why I just want to surround Dame with like the smartest players possible, high IQ players that you don't necessarily have to coach, or they just know how to be in the right positions and to close out and do all these things without being. It's because they have detail in their own personal preparation, not necessarily from a coaching point of view. But all these like younger guys on our team that don't know how to do that. I mean, Dame's been under Stotts his entire career. Same with CJ, so they don't know necessarily how to attack or learn that kind of stuff because they've only been taught how to do it a certain way their whole career.
Yeah, and I mean, like, Stotts looks fine on the surface. That's the thing. Is a lot of people that call us idiots and say, we don't know what we're talking about. They're the people that can't see the details that we see. Either they, A, don't want to, B, don't know these details, like, or a combination of both. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing is all our critiques are about detailed stuff, and a lot of the people that think Terry Stotts is a really good coach never can even have a conversation about the detailed stuff that we're talking about. So that's the whole thing with me is in the conversation regarding Stotts is you got a lot of these radio guys, a lot of people in the fan base that never even discuss any detailed basketball things. You know what I mean? They don't talk help side positioning. They don't talk the timing of backside rotations. They don't talk how the proper technique, how to get through the screen. Either A, doesn't get good ratings, or B, they don't know it, or C, they don't want to criticize Stotts, or all the above. You know what I mean? So that's the whole thing with the conversation around Stotts.
But Tori, Dame likes Stotts, so we can't get rid of him.
I mean, that's the thing, bro. I would probably like Stotts if I played for him, man. That would be fun. That'd be easy. He's an easy guy to play for. He's a player's coach. When has there ever been a player's coach who players didn't like?
Yeah.
That's what doesn't make sense to me. When has there ever been a player's coach that players didn't go to bat for, bro? Giannis went to bat for Jason freaking Kidd. Like, I know Budenholzer struggled in this past year's playoffs, but he's still far better than Jason Kidd, right? Like, players will always vouch for players' coaches, especially if it's a loyal guy like Dame, who's had the same coach his entire career. Dame doesn't know any other coach. So, I hate that argument for that reason as well.
And Alex Wolf measures Ariza. That's one of the reasons why I'm not high on a lot of trades for Ariza. I feel like he does have that veteran, smart IQ type craftiness about him, and he doesn't need coaching. He knows how to get through picks by himself, and he's seen it all in the NBA. So I think we need more people like that, not less people by trading him away for someone like Aaron Gordon, who's going to be exactly like what we're used to, like not knowing how to do the detailed things to win games.
Yeah. So just an interesting conversation. We haven't really talked about coaching, and it's honestly like that's something that I'll harp on next year's attention to detail, because I've never really like thought about it that way, but I feel like, I mean, I have thought about it that way, but I've never really voiced it that way. I feel like that's an easy way to voice it for people who are supportive of Stas, to kind of understand where you're coming from. It's the detailed things and they matter. So, yeah, man, I mean, well, next year I expect more of the same. I'm not trying to get all negative at the end of this, but, I mean, it'll be more of the same. Maybe more people will see it, or maybe Stotts improves, who knows? We probably aren't going to talk much about coaching this offseason, but with these new coaching hires, it was interesting to kind of talk about it and then talk about, where Stotts struggles and where some other teams have struggled in the playoffs. So, actually, really good conversation. I enjoyed this conversation.
Me too.
Yeah, we'll take questions for like 5 minutes. Any questions you guys have, rapid fire at the end of this.
Some people are talking about the rumor that we've had several conversations with Jay Scrubb in the draft, or Olshey has had several conversations with him.
I'll say this. When does Olshey's... Whenever things get leaked this far before the draft, they never happen in regards to Neil Olshey. The Anthony Simons thing took like...
It could be coming from Jay Scrubb, too.
Yeah, but like, that's the thing. It's like, Olshey's going to have talks with a number of prospects. The thing is, we're used to only having one pick, other than the year where we drafted Swanigan and Zach Collins. We're only used to having one pick, because we haven't had second rounders hardly at all the past couple of years. So we're used to having one pick, so we're only used to like, oh, guys in this area. But like, we have 2 picks this year. Crazy to think about it. We got 46 and we got 16. So like, we're going to be talking to players in the second round, in the first round. You're going to hear a lot of like Portland's talking to so and so.
And there could, you don't know who Olshey's talking about for moving up, moving down with either pick. We could move up in the draft. We could move back out of the first round. Mm-hmm. We could move up from 46 to the early second round or early first round, late first round. But yeah, so everyone just saw that and was instantly like, if we take Jay Scrubb at 16, that's such a bad pick, like blah, blah, blah. They didn't click on the article, which shows it was a mock draft with intel, and it had us taking Sadiq Bey at 16 and Jay Scrubb at 46, which I think would be a home run draft in my opinion. But
I'm not high on Jay Scrubb. Let me just say that I'm not high on Jay Scrubb. I've watched some tape on him, and I don't know, man. It's hard to like see how he's going to play at the NBA level when he's playing against talent like that. But he didn't really wow me. He's not that fluid. I feel like for a guard, like
Destrom's a few minutes ago he was asking who Jay Scrubb was, and now he's trying to act like he knows who he is or something.
Jay Scrubb is not a point guard. Whoever J Doe said Jay Scrubb is a 6'6" point guard, I 100% agree. He's not really. He doesn't have good vision at all. His ball handling isn't the best. Like, he could end up being an NBA player, but it's just like, bro, you put any 6'6" wing in the G League against that level of competition, they're doing what Jay Scrubb does. Like, it's not impressive to me. And he didn't, like, it's not like he averaged like 30 to 35 points a game either, so I don't know. He doesn't really stand out as anything special to me. So I'm not, like, I feel like the fact that he played JUCO makes people think he has high upside because he's like decently athletic and can hit some shots off the dribble and that type of thing. I just don't see it. Could you guys see Lonzo being traded? Possibly. I don't know what New Orleans is going to do this offseason. Why do you both want to sign and trade Whiteside? I assume you're not talking to us, Ben, because we're not going to sign and trade Whiteside. Like, we can't just sign and trade Whiteside. Whiteside is not getting signed and traded. People that suggest sign and trade Whiteside to so-and-so for someone, sign and trades don't work like that. So, sign and trading Whiteside isn't really an option. Yeah, Jace. Thoughts on Tyrell Terry? I haven't watched him enough. We don't need shot makers. We need a defensive coach. I mean, you need both, I think. Which video game are you looking forward to most this year and next year? I'm looking forward to see how 2K looks like on PS5 on the next gen, though. I'm curious to see that. I probably won't really play it, but all the games that I like have already come out because I'm a Rocket League guy. Any other questions you guys got?
I have a little bit of a poop emergency from my little one. I'm gonna have to bounce.
You just said you had to go take care of something. That's all you had to say. You didn't need to hit us with a TMI.
Yeah, it's all good.
All right.
But see you guys. Sorry.
You good? Well, bye to Eric. Let me try and go to. Let's see here. Let's go to. I need to have like a screen. You guys like that tree? I'm gonna keep that tree there on the right side. It's pretty. I need to put a screen in this setup that should just me, so I could just easily switch to that. Eric hitting us with the TMI though. How do we get Scottie Pippen as what? A player or a coach? Do you know Kai Soto? I've heard of him. Never really watched him. When you say looking forward to 2K, you really trigger me. I'm just looking forward to see like how the gameplay looks on PS5. That's it. Who's someone realistic we can trade Hazonia for? Maybe you, Destrom. We probably couldn't get much more than that though. Chat is on my face, bro. I have to like if I would have to completely change this whole entire stream setup. So I'm gonna log off here shortly. If you guys want to come play Among Us with us, I'm gonna go play some Among Us with the community. I'll drop the Discord in there. We've been playing Among Us. I've been chilling with some of the fans of Blazers Uprise, whatever you want to call it, and that's been cool. So I'm gonna drop the Discord link if you guys want to come play Among Us. We play with mics and stuff. It's fun. So there you go. There's a Discord link. Yeah. So we're gonna. I don't know about Eric, but that's what I'm going to go do. Any other questions? No. As far as content, just expect some draft profiles here this weekend, and that's about all I'm going to plug for now. Andre Drummond best fit? I don't know. On a bad team, he's not really the type of center I want for a contending team starting. You know, he'd probably have to maybe a bench big, but who knows if he'd even accept that role. I feel like he's very Whiteside-esque in terms of like how he is and his fit with contending teams. I feel like it just doesn't work. Do you think an assistant coach would help? I mean, we already have assistant coaches. Andre Drummond is not one of the best bigs. That's like saying Whiteside is one of the best bigs. Like, Drummond puts up nice stats, but he's, it's more to it than stats. Where's Harkless going? I have no idea. Would you want to trade for DeRozan? No. Why would a guy that can't shoot threes or defend is not a good fit next to Dame or CJ? He's a worse fit next to Dame than CJ is. His board numbers are godlike. So are Whiteside's. But we know what Whiteside does. He steals rebounds from teammates, doesn't box out. I would love to get Jaylen Brown, but that's not going to happen. Do you think Ingram and Devontae Graham would work? I was thinking about it earlier today. Devontae Graham's more of a role player. Ingram's a star. So, like, talking about them as a two-some pairing doesn't really make a ton of sense. Because Devontae Graham isn't anywhere near his caliber. If you're talking about Ingram fitting with somebody, it better be, like, another star because Devontae Graham is like a more complementary piece and like a duo partner with Ingram, if that makes sense. Who's the biggest free agent we could possibly get? Maybe like a Danilo Gallinari. I think he'll make more than mid-level exception, but Nurkic has been recruiting him hard. Devin Vassell, I'm not high on at all. You guys will hear about that in his draft profile. What else do I want to answer here? Who could Boston trade up for? I think Boston might try and get a Kongwu. He makes a lot of sense for them. If not Gallinari, then maybe Serge Ibaka. Either one of those guys I'd be happy with. I'd be more happy with Ibaka, though, because he defends better. Like, if we sign Gallinari for the mid-level exception, we'd probably have to guarantee him a starting job, and he's not a good defender, so then that makes our starting lineup, like, mediocre in terms of defense. So, not a huge fan of that. High upside second-round prospects we could maybe get. I honestly haven't watched a ton of film on second-round prospects. I'll get there before the draft, so come back to me with that question in like 2 weeks, Shervins. Achua makes sense for Boston. I think they need a long-term center, though. Okongwu fits perfectly. Aaron Gordon is garbage. Blazer fans overrate him. Shot 30% from 3 last year. Isn't a good defender. Needs to play in an up-tempo offense. He's a good lob target, but our guards don't really throw lobs. Like, nothing about him makes sense for the Blazers. Best imposter in the Blazers community, definitely Smog. See Golden State trading for Gordon. It wouldn't really make much sense. You can't really play with him with Draymond, I don't think. I don't know, neither one of those guys can shoot. But Gordon can play make a little bit, so. Can we get Josh Richardson? I mean, we could, but I don't think we will. Doesn't really make sense to trade Ariza for him, and I don't like trading CJ for, like, Tobias Harris and Josh Richardson. I see people suggest, like, trade McCollum and Ariza for Tobias Harris, Josh Richardson, and the 21st pick, and that's just a completely lateral move to me that doesn't accomplish anything whatsoever. Uber realistic? I don't think so. Would it be a downgrade if we managed to get Baines over Whiteside? If we had to start Baines, like if we had a starting center spot open, I'd rather have Whiteside, but off the bench, I think Baines is more accepting of that role and therefore would be more productive as a backup center than Whiteside. So if we're talking about backup center, it's not a downgrade to let Whiteside walk and replace him with Baines. Can we get Ingram? Very, very doubtful. I don't know how in the world we'd get Ingram. So anyway, fun answering your guys' rapid fire questions. If I miss some, you can always post them in the mailbag, and Eric will answer them next week. He is the next mailbag. Or you can just come chill with us next Monday, and I'll answer some more. I enjoy rapid fire answering the questions, but I'm going to go play some Among Us with the community. If you want to come play with us, I linked the Discord above. I'm going to hop in there right now. Kind of addicted to that game, but it's cool to actually talk with people from the community because I'd never really talked with anybody that watched my channel before starting playing this game. So I've gotten to talk to a lot of cool people, and that's always fun. So anyway, that wraps up the stream. I'm gonna give a peace out for Eric because he had to run. But hope you guys have a good weekend. Stay tuned for some draft profiles. That's the only content I really got planned. I'm gonna hopefully drop five or six between this time and Monday. So that is the plan. Anyway, that's all I got. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a good rest of your night. As always, peace out. Go Blazers.